Welcome, everyone. This is the GTM AI podcast. Episode number 27 with Bruno Estrella, the head of growth marketing of Clay, stops by to dig into how Clay takes teams to the next level to have success despite challenges in the market today with expanding pipeline and generating intelligence. This is sponsored by the GTM AI Academy, your go-to source for learning how to use AI in companies, teams, and in your individual workflow. Business impact over learning tools.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is I, Coach K, and I am joined by the one and only Bruno Estrella of Clay, head of growth marketing. So excited to have you. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really stoked. He reached out to me about a couple of different things around Clay, and I've been with, so I consult people. I'm worked with a couple of organizations that use Clay. I'm really excited to have you. And I have to say congrats because of your last total funding. This just happened just barely. So that's awesome. But let's talk about, obviously want to talk about Clay, but let's talk about you first. For those who are not on LinkedIn and can't see all the stuff you've gone through, so you were with Webflow as the head of growth marketing. You've been in the space for a while now with Clay. I'd love to hear the journey of you not on LinkedIn. Like, how in the heck did you get to Clay from your path? And just tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, you definitely can see my career path here on LinkedIn. But so I worked in a lot of startups. I was always intrigued by the space. And earlier in my career, like not really, like mid in my career, I actually built like a outbound agency and did a lot of outbound data enrichment and on that space. And it was very early on, so like trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay, very like manual process, but helping B2B companies do that back in the day. Then time passed by. I joined Webflow very early as basically the second growth hire there. We were like
Yeah.
50 people when I joined, like seed,
Oh, wow.
and then left. Spent 5 years there, then left. The company was like 700 people, Series C, multiple millions in revenue. And I ran mostly our like user acquisition to the self-serve product, all the growth marketing motions there, some parts of the product on user acquisition. But then as I was at Webflow for 5 years and stuff, and then I came across Clay. And because of my background on outbound from earlier in the days, I saw the product and I saw the data enrichment capabilities, saw the community behind it, uh, saw the community led and product led motion. I was like, okay, this thing is for real. So met the team, met the founders, and joined Clay. It's been around 8 months now, and we've been growing pretty fast. So that's pretty much it. What we can really read on LinkedIn.
All the story behind the scenes. I love it. For those who don't know who the heck Clay is, in case someone has not heard of it, but define for me, who the heck is Clay and what does Clay do differently than some of the other data aggregators? What's the difference?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Clay is that typically like on this space, on the data enrichment, sales automation type of world,
Mhm.
the playbook was you buy a piece of software or a database that comes with basically in a box. Right? It comes with like, here's the data that you get after you buy us, and then you leverage that to enrich your list, find people, and then do outreach to them. Right?
Right.
Clay's different because Clay's very much it's a very flexible product. So you can bring data from the typical databases that people bring,
Yeah.
or bring data from Google Maps or from Google Search. And within that, you can find typical day-to-day things that people do in data enrichment, email, work emails, phone numbers, and everything like that to actually power your outbound motion.
Yeah.
Uh, but you can leverage that with all the data providers that we have and on a waterfall format. And so you can actually if you try to get this information from someone and you don't get it, you can keep trying on multiple different data providers. But the very interesting thing that's very different from Clay is, for example, let's say you want to do outbound to dentist offices, right?
Yeah.
Buy a database product, they're not going to have information around that, right? Because it's like a very niche.
Right.
And because Clay is a very powerful and flexible product, you can do things like you can pull data, for example, Google Maps, and then use AI to do the manual research that I back in the day when I was doing outbound, I used to hire VAs to do. Just hey, visit this website and tell me if this dentist office does root canals, or if they do teeth whitening, or like all of these things that it would take you forever to figure out, you can automate with AI and Clay now, and then you can send that data that you build and then you enrich very creatively to your CRM, to like to HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever you want to send, or to email sending platforms. So today, like very large companies like Ramp, Notion,
Yeah.
Brex, they use Clay to automate some of their research, enrich profiles, and do automated outbound and outreach in general. So that's like the how people use Clay. Happy to answer any questions here.
No, I love it, man. I told you before the show, what I try to focus on is actual business impact, meaning more revenue, reduced costs, better efficiencies, both on an operational level and a strategic level. And I can tell you, like, I'll give you an example. My experience is one thing that my team is doing is they define their ICP or personas, and then they use Clay to go after specific people, obviously. And then they enrich I'll have to tell you, this is pretty cool, but they enrich their Salesforce data with Clay. And then what happens is when they have a meeting with that person, they automated it so that the information about the person, ICP and everything comes up in a pre-meeting reminder. So they know industry people, major pains based on the persona, like all this stuff is automated. So where before a call, the sales rep has everything kind of hand delivered to them, enriched from an industry perspective. And then also just from a persona research training perspective, all automated using largely Clay as the foundational piece, which is just freaking cool. Whereas if you think about that from before, I in an enablement function would have to do that manually, which is like almost impossible to do for every single call for every single person every single day. It's crazy. So what I would love to hear from you is like I love the first example you gave about dentists, but do you have any real examples from Clay customers? And you don't have to say their names; you can keep them anonymous of where they applied it in a way that actually got them leads, business, etc.
Yeah, so there are a few. And there's like the typical outbound use case. There's also a lot
Yeah.
of like inbound use cases too that people tend to do with Clay. So for example, I'm not gonna give specific names, but a very well-known company in the technology space, they have thousands of signups to their product on a daily basis.
Mhm.
But they don't want to treat like someone from Nike as someone like the same that they as the same as a really small business, right? The small business want to go through the typical self-serve motion. But someone from a really established business, you want to make sure that you treat them differently. So
Yep.
what they do now with Clay is we have all the signups flowing through Clay, and this like all of these signups getting rich with very creatively based on the things that I mentioned to you. Visit the website, tell me if the company is SOC 2 approved or not. Tell me about what are the customers that they have on their case study. And who's this person that signed up? Is it a decision maker? Yes or no? And you can filter to your ICP, get all this information. So what they're doing now is okay, this person that signed up should be treated different. Let's actually send them to to our CRM and make sure that our sellers know that they should reach out to them to make sure that they understand the use case and they can actually go into like an enterprise deal. So
Right.
like a lot of these use cases from an inbound perspective, that's
Mhm.
actually generating a ton of pipeline to these companies. And there's also like the actually automated outbound approach that a lot of people do, which is like grabbing signals that you can collect in Clay from all the marketing functions that they have, from a social perspective, from an events perspective, send those into Clay to automatically generate the enrichment and send it to email campaigns. Which is this approach is we're seeing like kind of like the signal based.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we're seeing most successful within our space here.
So I love randomly enough, right before you and I chatted, I pulled up LinkedIn and saw a particular sales influencer talking about AI SDRs, like literally 2 hours ago posted, which I know Clay's not an AI SDR. So I know that's not what you're saying, but I'm curious to say your thoughts on that. How does Clay compare to an AI SDR type of play that is like signal based and
Yeah.
personalized and all this other stuff? What's the difference between that type of use case versus what Clay does?
Yeah, I think this might be a little bit controversial, but
That's
like
okay. I like controversy. That's good.
it's the fully hands-off AI SDR approach is very tricky,
Yeah.
especially if you are like in a large company and you have to trust this as part of your brand. So the difference between Clay and the fully automated AI SDR, I think this is we actually believe that there needs to be some sort of like human in the loop for a lot of this. So we
Yeah.
need there is someone who's on the revenue operations, the marketing operations, sometimes on demand generation or enablement teams that sort of control all of the research. And also like basically the way that is implemented is that Clay uses AI to automate the really busy work. So like the things like the research piece that I was telling you,
Right.
like you set and automate like the specific things that are like very important for you to know that are more qualitative, like understanding if this company is SOC 2 approved or not, or if it's product led or sales led, or what's the summary of the earnings report that they had,
Mm.
and did they mention anything specifically on the last earnings call?
Right.
The that you have to actually do it manually, but you can do it manually for 200 people. We use AI for that, for the research, and then which is different than like the set and forget type of approach.
Mhm.
With AI SDRs, we do that, and then we set up the automations, but there's got to be a human in the loop to verify everything is going correctly.
Yeah.
That enables you to like experiment too, which is okay. I use this sort of personalization and research piece to try to get them to jump in a call with my seller. But what if I try this other one? So
Right.
like it's different of we actually don't see the AI SDR moving technology moving that quickly now. So we believe that you have to have some sort of like human in the loop to do the basically use AI to do the manual research and stuff that you can do at
Right.
scale.
Yeah. I thought about Sam Altman had a conversation just like 2 months ago now, where he talked about how everyone's worried about jobs. And we should be less worried about jobs and not worried, but more thinking around tasks and how AI can do 5 minute tasks, 5 hour tasks, 5 days tasks, 5 week tasks. And what all can we assign an AI to do that is really mundane stuff that humans don't want to do anyways? And like this point you bring up about AI SDRs is that same thing of instead of being substituting a human for an AI, it's empowering the human with an AI, making therefore them better.
Have the SDR team focus on building the relationship with the customer,
Yep.
jump into the call, making sure they understand the needs and make sure that they understand what are the actual things that they want to see from this solution
Yep.
versus having to go put the manual data entry or the manual research. Uh,
Right.
and yeah, that's basically how we've been approaching here.
Which, by the way, back this is going to age me because I started as an SDR a long time ago, and I was that person who used the phone book to go in and take the information from a phone book and literally hand type it into an Excel sheet,
Yeah.
so then I could go through and then later call with them voicemail. I cold called everybody because we never knew we could guess their emails. We had no idea, so I had to guess their emails and like all this stuff. Like I think about where we were versus where we are
Oh,
now. I'm like, man, I would.
when I was doing
Yeah.
outbound back in the day that I told you all, I literally had a 39-page process doc to do like a personalized outreach
Uh-huh.
that I can literally do in 5 minutes in Play today. So I look
That's
back like,
crazy.
wow, I actually would have saved so much time in my life. But yeah,
Well, this brings up the topic then of trust. Like this is a conversation I have all the time is trusting the output because it comes so easy. First off, people are like, there's no way that's actually good. Number one. And then two is, can I actually trust it? Because there's all these stories around how, as an example, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini sometimes hallucinate. And so sometimes the information that comes out is not 100% accurate. So how do you deal with that with Clay to have that trust factor? So within data, comes back, you can say, this is legit and I can trust that, or what you said, that 37-page document is now 5 minutes. How do you know it's all, how do you trust that? Does that make sense? Hopefully.
And I think that's the reason why we've been approaching with having the human in the loop and also very making sure that clay is very configurable. And that's where the flexibility and power of the product comes because you can see the output. And if the output doesn't is not as you expected, you can go ahead and manipulate it and change it and make sure that it actually fits your brand, it fits your the way that you talk about your product to your customers. It's leveraging the right signals. So it's very configurable. Okay, you can actually do it, you can actually set it, but if there's something that you feel like it doesn't fit your goals or how you're approaching, you can actually
Yeah.
make sure tweak the language, the data. So that's exactly why we believe we need people actually to oversee and manipulate it, and that's why clay is so configurable today.
That's awesome. What with clay specifically, like when you boil it down, it's all about knowing it's speeding up obviously the process you're talking about, top of funnel. Do you on the horizon, what do you see kind of clay shifting into or moving towards? Or anything different that you guys looking at to even consider? Or what are you excited about might be happening with clay specifically?
Yeah, I think like there are a few things. One is like, how do we identify what the right triggers for your business?
Hmm.
Do we help you identify when is the right time to reach out to these to possible buyers? So the whole signals and making sure that people understand that is something that we're going to be investing in. And the other piece is like inbound and outbound is basically just the start that we're gonna be that we chose to the path that we chose to start.
Yeah.
But we're then gonna actually get into areas like retention and engagement to your business. Like how can
Right.
we identify to you when a customer is getting closer to churn and you should actually grab some elements
Mhm.
and reach out to them. How can we actually help you identify when someone is should expand? And can we provide you data points to actually reach out to them as well? So we're going to actually start to move towards the other parts of the life cycle of the customer to retention, expansion, and how can we actually improve these workflows for business as well?
A question that I'm sure some people are asking, and I just want to give you a chance to clarify on a couple things. Most people in this space are used to tools like ZoomInfo or Apollo or something, and obviously you have some features and capabilities that they don't necessarily have. But how do you describe the difference between one of those two tools that most people know versus a newer tool like Clay? What's the biggest differences between the two?
I
Three.
think the biggest difference in general, or like when you purchase Apollo or ZoomInfo, you basically purchase like a closed environment product. Right? You purchase basically a box, right? Here's the data. Here's what you can leverage. And if you don't have this data here, you okay to purchase another one. And with
Right.
like one of the big differentiation with Play is we actually aggregate multiple data providers.
Yeah.
So if you want to find someone's email, let's say you want to find someone's work email, and if we try one data provider, and you can see
Mhm.
this happening uh, using our waterfall feature, which is like if you don't find using this provider, we then check this other one, and if you don't find this one, you can then check this other one. So we keep trying until you actually find it. So data coverage improves substantially. Like we
Yeah.
have customers here that we're using like legacy tools,
Mhm.
and they have 30-40% coverage from their user base.
Right.
Use Play, they can now they're seeing jump into 70 and 80% because
Right.
we have all of these different ways for you to find the information. So that's one that it's more for the structured data. Right. But the other one is actually what we chatted about. How creative can you be to find information and data about a customer that will help you at scale? So, hey,
Mhm.
about like visiting the website and creating, basically transforming unstructured research into structured data points for your business.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
visiting the pricing page and tell me what's the average price value that they have. visiting their homepage and tell me what's the value prop of the business. So you can actually like sometimes whenever we were chatting with people here about Clay, we tend to describe it as like a creative uh, go-to-market tool
Hmm.
because if you can think of what's the best case scenario, you could probably do it from an enrichment point of view. Yeah, because like you can actually grab the data because it's very qualitative. You can actually transform qualitative information into quantitative using AI, and that's where we're gonna be. That's the biggest differentiation that we
That's cool. So literally like the name, it's clay, so you can mold it to whatever you need to have
that
happen.
that's why it's the
Yeah.
name. That's why
Hence the name.
yeah, yeah.
It's coming together for me. I'm a little slow, but I'm getting it. Let me give you an example. And this is probably what you're referring to is probably would have solved the problem I had in the past. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a team where we were going after data from South America, and with Zoom Info, we had great info with North America, but the South America info, emails, phone, whatever, was not very good. So we went to Apollo, and the Apollo stuff in Latin America was much better, right? So what I'm hearing you suggest then, instead of that scenario, to buy one data person for one area and one for another, that because you rely on multiple from an AI perspective, you can find the commonalities between the both and figure out the holes in the conversation. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
basically, like, for example, we actually partner with like more than 80 data providers. So like, if you don't find your information in one, you can probably find across 7 or 8 of them.
Yep.
Uh, so like your data, your possibility of finding that data, and like with Clay, you actually only so you don't have to create different accounts for all of these providers. You create one Clay account, and you pay us with credits, and you only pay for the data that you find. So like your possibility of finding that data, your data coverage increases substantially with this format. So yeah,
Yeah. And is it remind me, is it consumption based or seat based?
it's
Remind me.
consumption based. Uh,
Awesome. That
and
I'd love to dive in. What do you think about that? Because this is an argument I hear all the time. Should we go consumption? Or we go seat based? What's your business now? You're actually marketing a tool that has that consumption versus seat.
I think SaaS in general went into this whole thing of like seat based early on, and people never really changed. But if you actually want to tie the value of your product to how people use and how they should be, you should do consumption based. Because
Yeah.
that's like you're paying for what you're getting, and with us, we actually don't have any seat limits in Clay. You can be on our free plan, on our starter plan, Explorer. You can have as many people as you want in there, because we truly believe that you should pay for what you get, and you should pay for consumption product. So that's like our philosophy. We won't never change this. It's a big thing here internally. Hey, it's cost is you should be paying for what you're getting. Because at the end of the day, we were really small too, and we hated to get locked into big contracts and like C-based type of things
Yeah.
where everyone hates. Like literally everyone hates. And then
Right.
people implement it because to make money.
Well, on the other side, I'll play I wouldn't say devil's advocate, a different point of view. That being on the other side of being a buyer, like sometimes I have a budget that the argument against consumption, I'm sure you know this already, is I have a threshold of budget I can do monthly. And so my question is, for example, I personally pay for 11 labs where I get consumption of so many credits. And after I get to the cap, it's capped. Is that the same kind of concept with Clay to where it's consumption to a certain amount and then it stops? So then the budget holder's not like, I'm just spending money all the time now because it's just consumption based. What's the balance between the two?
But yeah, so what we have here is like you have each plan, you have your consumption that you can go up into. But
Yeah.
if for example 1 month you think you're gonna go over, or you need to go over, or you can buy credit packs to
Cool.
actually help or if 1 month you actually lower, the credits roll over as well. So you
Yeah.
have over credits, which is something that we implemented earlier this year. That was if you think from an investor perspective, they're probably, oh, maybe not, like maybe because it might hurt your expansion motion.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's something that our customers really needed, so we decided to implement it. Like
Yeah.
we have rollover credits. If you didn't spend all your credits that you had in the previous month, roll over to the next one. It's pricing and consumption based and rollover credit packs, something that we deeply investing in here.
I love that. Let's
So,
go through some of the stuff you use. So diving outside of clay, besides clay, which I'm sure you use all the time, what are you using you personally in head of growth marketing as far as AI is concerned that you feel is like really awesome? You just can't get enough of.
Yeah, we honestly we use every day
Right.
nonstop. But they're I think honestly, the most useful things that I see that AI does for us are the mundane things that I don't want to have the time to do it. So like no taking calls. Like this is such a huge thing that I back in the day
Right.
was really hard for you to. I think the other one that I've been seeing work quite well is some sort of AI like image generator on a few products.
Mhm.
I think, for example, Canva is starting to do some really interesting thing. AI
Yeah.
generation. There's some video ones that are actually really like creepy good, you know?
Are you talking like Sora? You mean like the Avatar ones?
Like the Avatar one.
Yeah.
So like SenseSpark is one that is actually pretty good. There are a few that are really strong that we've been using here.
Do you
That
find results with it, like actual success with it?
yeah, we're still experimenting. It's one of those things that like, do I actually want to do it? Uh,
Right.
but it's actually like the quality is improving super fast on that area. So something that we've been
Yeah.
investing a lot here. Have you
It's
used any of these?
I haven't yet personally because most of the companies I've been with have been very conservative when it comes to these kind of tools, but I've demoed and seen a ton of them. There's a couple I've seen SenseSpark and I've seen another one where what they do is you record a video and they have a script. And so you say the script, but there's certain key points that you personalize to the customer and they blast out the video, but they personalize each part of it. So it feels genuine enough and real enough, but then the parts that there's AI generated to customize to the person, you can't
Sure.
really tell. So like all of a sudden you from one video, you make 30 of them and just start blasting them to different people. And
Yeah.
it's crazy good. Like where we have this, we talked before with SDRs, the balance between how to use AI in a way that you can mass market, personalize whatever in a good way versus just the blasting just to blast. I think there's some really exciting things you can do
Yeah.
once it's
I
done correctly. But
one that I saw that was actually really interesting too is like Hey Gen.
yeah,
Uh,
Agent's awesome.
yeah, because they also have different use cases like on learning and development.
Yeah.
They like
Yeah.
one did one thing with McDonald's a few months ago. So like showing like a video which was insanely good, talking about
Yeah.
language barriers and stuff. So that's I think that side of the AI world is evolving pretty fast. That's
Yeah.
something we're paying attention to here too.
Yeah. It's video specifically. And then when Sora came out, some of the stuff they're doing there with Sora, it's crazy. But that's where like I was having a talk with a musician friend of mine because we were talking about AI and music. And there's some insanely good generators with one called Sona, I think. There's Sora for video. I think the other one's Sonar. I think I can't remember. Anyways, the music it's producing is actually really good. The lyrics are not bad, but the production of it is like phenomenal. You couldn't some of the stuff they're pumping out. This sounds like a human actually wrote this, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But
The other area that it's actually and like you can do that in ChatGPT, but it's something that
yeah,
really strong that I use too is a lot on the kind of like the data analysis.
mm,
Like
yeah,
you don't need to learn SQL or any of that, especially in growth marketing world, like where you had to do sometimes you have to do some investigation to see what's going with the data. That
right.
whole area of like data analysis, SQL writing, this saves so much time
Which
that
tool? With ChatGPT, you mean, or with something else? What'd you say?
I just use ChatGPT and it works really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
So
they have the data analysis GPT, which actually is phenomenal for that kind
yeah,
of stuff. It's crazy how good it is.
write a ton. It's super helpful.
Yeah. What are you excited about with AI? And well, I'll ask two questions. What are you concerned about? And then what are you excited about? Let's do that first with AI and go to market or business in general.
Yeah, with AI and go to market, I think what I'm concerned about is mostly like the reputation. Like sometimes I don't think people have understood like most of the people haven't understood like that you can actually use to the very mundane things that you don't want to do. And
Right.
the whole concept of automating everything with AI, that's where I'm a little concerned, which is I don't think the technology is there now to make a really strong impact
Hmm.
on businesses. And
Yep.
destroys the reputation, which then becomes like a conversation over time. So I think that's one area that we need to pay attention. And what I'm mostly excited about, I think it's like the evolution of within go to market. It's the evolution across other areas too.
Yeah.
I think the sales one is something that we're starting to see, the data enrichment as well.
Yeah.
But there are things within growth marketing that could automate a lot of all that could help as well, which is can I actually make sure that AI understands the channel level data that we have on like
Yeah.
how these campaigns performing on LinkedIn? What are the key can you analyze what my audience likes within these channels and send these insights over to me and I can replicate as much as possible?
Yeah.
How can I plug these models within things like Google Ads or like a lot of these things that'll help these
Hmm.
scale? I think there's one area, the go-to-market org, that hasn't used as much that I think will start to get disrupted soon, uh, that I'm pretty excited about.
Do you feel like I've been thinking about this a lot from a buyer? More if you take AI out of the equation for just a second, and we talk about the buyer's journey and how classic buyer's journey of going through some sort of marketing funnel into a SDR motion ask questions, then to a discovery call, then to a demo, then to like that process. There's a lot of companies who are going against it with like interactive demos and the demo days from all these different places. I have a demo library, which people are loving because they don't have to go through a sales process to see a freaking demo, all these kind of things. And so it feels like outside of AI that there's this experience from buyers who are like, listen, I just want to be able to see some stuff, ask probably a couple of questions, which means that the sales process will be more advanced once they get to a point they're ready to talk to a human. Do you ever see a world where, let's just say, a Jarvis level Iron Man thing who hasn't existed yet, but we're close to, I think closer than ever, exists to where it's really just answering questions, giving some pricing, and maybe there's some customization where it does require a human? Do you ever see the sales process all the way from marketing through the buyer's journey being mostly replaced with AI? I think that world's ever going to get here based on the trying to get past the hoops that we force people to go through to buy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like buyers today are so well informed and they're getting more and more technical.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea of jumping into a call to collect information, to then do a demo, to then do another demo, and then
Just shoot another one. And
then bring your solutions engineer. Like most people, from what we've seen, they just want to talk to their solutions engineer right away. But I think a lot of the validation, I think eventually is going to go away. So I think that's when I think of like these roles, there will need to be you you're gonna automate your like mundane tasks for
yeah.
you to focus more on what are the actual value that we can bring to these conversations,
Mhm.
and can I upskill myself to actually being able to move the buyer from all these steps much quicker. But I think it's going to evolve. I think now we might not be there yet, but I think in the next few years we'll evolve. Because you're seeing, like you said, there's like there's a lot of product led motion going. There's a lot of like interactive demos. A lot people want to get into demo days and actually just see what the product does. I just want to see what it does.
Yeah.
Uh, actually fit for me, and I want to make technical questions so I can move faster. So I think that's where the industry is going to evolve from. I think there's still going to be some level of qualification. There's still going to be human in the
Yeah.
loop, but there's going to be some evolution, like the types of questions, the type of engagements that you do on these steps before people buy. Because like at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you're writing like a $50,000 check, you want to talk to someone.
Right.
There's going to be some touch points. I think just like the types of questions, types of engagements will change. And I think they're going to be more detail oriented,
Yeah.
more technical than they are now.
Yeah. I think the same thing. It's just, it'll be curious to see what I still feel like we're in this transition of, I'd love to get your take on this and we'll wrap it up. But there's the world of using AI to do what we do now better, faster, and easier. Like, for example, the classic sales process of here's what I use AI discovery. Here's how you do an ISCR. But then as you start thinking about, but what if we change that to where the process or the experience changes because we now have the technology to enable an experience that we could never have done before. Do you see a world where we can start thinking differently about what the job to be done is, like through a buyer's journey, and say, okay, maybe going through these 12 stages before you could buy something is not the right stage or not the right thing for this. Maybe we should think of something different. Because I look at Clay as one of those tools that is changing that conversation. Does that make sense? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a really good question because the one world that we see happening, I don't see this happening like in 5 years. I think there's gonna like teams in general, like thinking of the buyer's journey. I think there are gonna be teams within the org that are focusing on setting up the systems and automations that enable the sort of like sellers to sell. So
Right.
like I imagine there's gonna be a world there's a sort of GTM ops role or GTM systems role or like
Something. Yeah.
that sort of like automates a lot of the work that qualifies people and does that.
Mhm.
So that so whenever the seller actually is gonna go talk to a buyer, they have all the context already and they can actually meaningful relationships and actually get them to buy. I think
Right.
what I think is gonna happen is like whenever the buyers jump into a call, they're gonna be like ready to buy.
Much
Yeah,
more primed.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Because then they would have either self disqualified, or the tool can't do whatever it needs because they have some question about
or they would
whatever.
or just the tool self-serve.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that's where we're moving. There's a lot to happen to get there. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I imagine there's gonna be more and more of that.
That's fascinating. Fascinating where we're going, man. First off, just want to thank you. To find you guys at clay.com, nice and easy, CLAY.com. What's the best way if someone wants to get in touch with you? How do they get, what's the best way for you?
Yeah, so they can either if you wanna talk to someone at Clay, you can go to our website on clay.com, like you said. If they wanna reach out to me specifically, go to my LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. Yeah, pretty much it.
Awesome. Nice and easy. Bruno, so excited for this. I'm really excited to start diving in and playing with Clay and see what kind of things we can get him up with. But I just want to tell you, thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.